Okay, so good morning folks. So I'm going to try and sum up my thoughts on the Tarptent Double Rainbow Double Wall Ultra. If you've not seen my previous video, that's got all the sort of specs and overview of it, plus a look at the inside space, which was the main thing that concerned me when I was thinking about purchasing it. But I've had it for 3 or 4 weeks in the French Alps, used it there quite a bit, and I'm currently out in the Lake District. I am with Mark from A Trick of the Trail. He's, just in case you're interested, he's just purchased this Bonfus Midas 2P. If you're not subscribed to him, go and have a look at his channel. He'll be putting a little look at that up at some point, no doubt. It's a really stable tent, actually. Really stable. We had a windy night last night. I would guess maybe the strongest winds were probably 25 miles an hour. Anyway, let's get down to brass tacks. I'll answer a question that a lot of people have asked me to start with on the first video about the tent, and that was, why did you buy the Ultra version and not the lithium version, which is the DCF one? And there's quite a few answers to that. 1, this one was a lot cheaper. 2, I specifically wanted a double wall design, i.e. an inner and an outer tent, whereas the DCF lithium one is just a single skin tent. Also, I know that now Tarptent do the lithium with a sil nylon or sil poly, I can't remember which floor, but when I had one in the past, it was a DCF floor, and I really didn't like it. That's why I sold, or one of the reasons why I sold the lithium rainbow that I had in the past. Another reason for getting this one, I actually wanted first-hand experience of the Ultra material. I wanted to know for myself what it was like and have a go at using it. So were the main reasons for purchasing this one over the lithium one. One other reason, the arch pearl in this tent, in this Ultra version, you can choose whether you get an aluminium one or a carbon one. Whereas on the lithium version, I believe it is just carbon, and I wanted to be able to get a stronger pearl, so that's why I went for this one with the aluminium pearl. All right, that's out of the way. So, what do I like about it? The main thing I love about this tent is the interior space. It's an absolute tip at the moment, but you can see there's plenty of room in there for my sleeping pad. There's a 50-litre pack in the corner there. I've got loads of space there and loads of space at the head end as well. Like I say, my previous video has got a look inside the tent with different sleeping mats and me, a 6-foot human in there. One of the other interior features that is really good as well are these little triangular vents you can see at the end. So they're just fabric panels that you can just easily undo from inside the tent. They flop down and they've got mesh behind them, so you can get some extra ventilation in there, or you can close them up like I've got if it's windy. When you're in there and you've got both doors rolled back like that, you've got a beautiful unobstructed view. And obviously when you're looking at something like this, that does really, really help. So that's a nice little thing. No poles in the way or guys or anything. Last night, as I said, it was quite windy, and it was actually coming this direction, straight into the end of the tent. So I did attach this guy rope here. There is an attachment point there, and I mean, it wasn't really bending the pole in, but I was worried it might do a little bit, so I just put that on just for a little bit of extra strength. There's also a tie-out point you can use further up there, and then you've got the same on the other side as well. Putting the tent up is a little bit of a mixed bag. I find it incredibly difficult to do all at once with the inner and the outer attached, basically because it's going to be difficult to show you, but you've got this, where the pearl goes, the arch pearl, you've got this pearl sleeve that runs along the top of the inner tent all the way along. And if you've got the inner and the outer attached, it's really difficult, because the pole is so long, it's really difficult to feed it through without it getting caught. You can do it, but it just takes some finagling. And if it's raining or if it's windy, it just makes the job even more difficult. So I've actually been putting them up separately. I've been putting the inner tent up first, getting that all sorted out, and then putting the skin over the outer skin over the top, and that's been fine for me so far. Doing it that way, obviously your inners are going to get a little bit wet if it's raining, so that's just one thing obviously to bear in mind. One thing that is really good, I always struggled with the X-Mid that I had to get a good tight pitch with it, and especially the inner. Every time I've put this tent up, the bathtub and the inner has been really, really taut and really nicely laid out. It goes up really well. You're doing something really, really wrong if you've got a bad pitch with this, or you're on bad ground. So yeah, that is really cool. You've got tensioners for the inner tent here on the corner. You've got these toggles, just the same as you've got the tensioners for the outer as well at the same point. So that's pretty cool. The material, the Ultra material, it's got its good points and its bad points. The good point is it doesn't stretch or sag or absorb any water. When I was sat in it the other night when it was raining, I was watching water literally just running down this end here, and it was running all the way down, and it was even running down these little clips. It was quite cool to watch. The main drawback, if you want to call it a drawback, it's extremely loud. I would say it's even louder than DCF when it's raining. I've been pitched this close to somebody twice now when it's been raining, and I've not been able to hear what they've been saying. One point, me and somebody else had to text each other because I couldn't hear a blooming thing. So if you're looking for a quiet tent, this isn't going to be for you, because the material, even the material when it's flopping around in the wind, it's noisier than DCF. And like I say, I've used this quite a bit now, and it's not calmed down at all. It's still as crinkly as it was. So I'm not sure that's going to change. I think that's just a characteristic of the material that you've got to either put up with or decide it's not for you. So as I said last night, it was pretty windy. And to start with, it was coming from this direction straight into the end of the tent, which is basically, if you're going to be hit by the wind in this tent, that's where you want the wind to be hitting you, because you can pop these guys out and basically that's going to make it really, really nice and sturdy. During the night, the wind did shift round and it ended up coming straight into this side here. Now, what was happening was this carbon arch pole on top, it's designed to flex. It just worries me, the amount of flexing it was doing. A lot of people have said what they do is they put their trekking poles, when you're inside the tent, you can stand your trekking pole up and kind of wedge it in there. And that does stop the bowing completely. I've not had much success with that because I use Lecky trekking poles, and they've got I think it's called the Ergo grip, that kind of grip on them. And basically what's been happening is, as soon as a gust of wind has hit with any strength, it's just knocked this out straight away. One viewer did say they put their dirty socks on top of the pole and wedged it in. I did try that with a pair of gloves and it just popped straight out. So yeah, that's one thing I'm a little concerned about, the bowing. I think if you were in some continuous, pretty high winds, that were hitting you on that side or on one of the sides, I have a feeling that may become a problem. So something to bear in mind. The other thing I found during the night was, especially where the wind had been hitting at this side, these plastic toggles that you do to pull the outer taut. I'll show you in the light, be able to see it a bit easier. Yeah, these plastic toggles here that you tighten up, they'd come loose during the night because of the, I mean, I think Mark had said that had happened to him with his X-Mid as well. So it's not something that's specific to this tent, but it is something that's a little annoying when you've got the material that doesn't stretch or sag and performs really, really well when it's taut. And then you've got these toggles that are working against that, basically. It's a little bit frustrating. So yeah, the toggles did slip. I mean, there may be a way around that. You may be able to kind of loop them round your stake you've got in there. You could maybe attach a loop or something to the end of that, so you could kind of tie it off and it would stop it from slipping maybe. That might be something to think about, a little modification. The venting options on this are insane. If you are in good weather, you've got a ton of venting options at your disposal. Again, I show pretty much most of them in the overview video if you're interested in seeing that, if you've not seen it already. But you can basically unattach one end of the fly sheet and roll it back up. You can roll it as far as halfway, so you've got this half of the tent would still be covered by fly sheet, this half of the tent would just be mesh inner. So that's a pretty nice touch. For the weight, which is roughly speaking, very roughly speaking, 1.2 kilograms, you get an absolute ton of space. Someone did ask me how this was compared to my old Big Agnes copper spur HVUL2, and I think what I would say is the space inside this is far better than the copper spur was. The material, obviously the copper spur I had was still nylon, so it absorbed a lot of water and you were carrying around a lot of water during the day. Obviously this doesn't do that, so that's a plus in this instance. For the double rainbow, the copper spur was easier to put up. It's probably the easiest tent I've ever had to put up. Just a case of staking out, putting 2 poles in and attaching your outer. It was really, really easy and you couldn't really go wrong. I didn't like that the outer material got trapped quite easily on the doors. They had little sort of storm flaps over the zips, and I was always getting material trapped in the zips on the doors. I'd prefer this over the copper spur, definitely. There is definitely a ton more room inside this than the copper spur, so hopefully that answers that question for you. The material, I don't know if you can see there, the sun's kind of beaming through. I've got the door open at the other side, obviously, and you can actually see through. You can see my sleeping pad in there, the outline of a few things. So if you're kind of worried about privacy, I would say that even in the worst conditions, like now when the sun's shining through, you're probably only going to be able to make out kind of shapes or outlines. If you're getting changed in there, I don't think anyone's going to be getting a massive eyeful. Obviously, a door either side is an absolute bonus for me. So you've got a vestibule either side as well. You've got storage. I wouldn't like to cook with a gas stove or any sort of stove with the doors closed, because the vestibules are pretty narrow compared to what I was used to on the X-Mid. See if I can show you on this. So you've not got a great deal of space, and they are quite steep as well. So that's something that I really wouldn't want to do. I'm going to put some footage up of when I had the porch mode on, or when I had porch mode set up, should I say. That is a feature that is superb on this tent. I've used it loads. I've even used it when there was no real need to. It just creates a really, really nice covered area. And I was worried about rain coming in through the gap in the roof when you've got the porch mode set up. It dripped a couple of times through there, even in pretty heavy, steady rain. But it seems to be a design element that it's slightly sloped, so rain kind of tends to gravitate towards one end of the porch mode, and it all drips off one end. I do have a little bit of footage. I'll try and dig it out and pop it on there. But yeah, porch mode is a really cool thing on this tent. I even had it on, or had it up last night in the wind, and it just meant I'd put 2 guys on each trekking pole, and it made it pretty stable, even when it was blowing about 20 miles an hour. So that's a really, really good feature. So yeah, that is, I think, oh no, one last thing. These things. I love the magnetic tiebacks on tents that you get in these days. I don't know who started it. It was possibly Tarptent that started it off. If it wasn't, I do apologise. But these ones are doing the job at the moment. I would really like to see them just maybe even a couple of centimetres, just an inch longer, the actual tie. Because as soon as you put any pressure or knock that, it just comes off. Came off a couple of times in the wind, just blew out, and it's a little bit annoying, especially if you're sat there cooking and all of a sudden the door just flaps into your stove. That's not happened to me yet, but it's something I bear in mind. So what I've been doing when I've been cooking, I've just been attaching a clothes peg onto that door just to make sure it's not going to pop off and burn my door, basically. Just a little annoyance with it, basically. That's just all that is. Right, before I think of anything else, I am going to sign off because I think Mark's waiting for me. Wants to get packed up and headed back to the vehicles. So yeah, that's everything, guys. Remember to have a look at Mark's channel, get subscribed and see his thoughts on his Bonfors tent when he gets around to it. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and happy trails.